welcome to this episode 223 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Barry Ackroyd, BSC, DP of the House Dynamite. Enjoy. I was gonna say before we even got started, like I remember, it's exciting to have you on because I remember when Hurt Locker came out.
Mm-hmm.
For what I mean, I think we were all. What year was that? Oh, 8?
Yeah, is it that far away? Yeah, it was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yeah, something like 8 or 9.
Yeah, I was in college, and for whatever reason, that movie just really stuck out for me and all my film school friends. We were just like, that's the greatest. But maybe it was high school. It was earlier in 08. But in any case, we were just like, they don't make movies like that. That's different, you know.
That's cool. That's really nice to hear. Yeah, that's good.
I think.
Yeah, well, we did. I mean, that was Catherine. Just as an aside, because we talked probably about the new film, but we got together and Catherine gave me a lot of freedom, and I offered what I knew I always presumed cinema should look like intense and real. And it's, everything came together, the story, the great actors who came into it, and Catherine, we were just, it was a good moment. Yeah. Good. And then I was shocked that people took to it so well. I honestly was shocked, because to me, it's what he should have been looking like. That's all I thought. And, but I think he had a big impact in America. Maybe that's because the style stepped outside of the norms, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think that time in American history certainly was, we were all kind of still being sold the polish of the wars and to be given a little bit more of a realistic look. I think we were like, ooh, shit.
Good. Good. Well, that's cool. I'm really pleased you're saying this, because I know it got tremendous kind of recognition. 6 Oscars, 6 BAFTAs, and although the cinematography went to Avatar, I'm not at all bitter about that at all. No, I don't mention it very much, but there were 4 other good films there. But anyway, that's my view on that kind of cinema, and the clash in that moment was either what a film by Catherine Bigelow made in this style, which was revolutionary to a degree, and Avatar, which was only revolutionary in its fetishization of, I didn't say that right, fetishization of technique and the technical ability. And it's, I don't know, I think it was something blew apart. I don't know what the cinematographers were thinking.
Yeah, that's kind of a great point I hadn't thought of. So that must have been around 08 then. But the idea of a movie shot in a documentary style on 16 millimeter versus a movie still shot, but ostensibly created, an animated film. Excising all of the bleeding edge technology versus borderline the opposite. That is an interesting Oscars conundrum, I suppose. Not that the Oscars matter so much, but it is a first of all, the fun to get, obviously, but it's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, I think it's, I think I maybe, I've just been with quite a few of the American cinematographers. Actually, it would have been a question, at camera much. I could have maybe put it to them and said, like, how did this happen? What was the thinking behind this? Who was the motivator? Because I think, I believe that it's the cinematographers who have the final word, really. It should be anyway. So anyway, well, like I said, I'm not bitter. I don't care.
Well,
I honestly don't know.
I think there is an element of not favoritism, but just like whatever's popular. I think there should be like a popular movie Oscar. Like, what was the one that just the audience seemed to just eat up? Because I remember there was like, I think one that bugged me as a kid for whatever reason, maybe just because I'm a David Fincher guy, but like I remember Benjamin Button lost to that film out of India. I think it was like shot on DVXs.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember.
The train, the one they're on the train.
Oh, in India, wasn't it the Darjeeling Express?
Something like I kept trying to say Chungking Express, which is not it.
No, Darjeeling. It's the Darjeeling Express. Yeah, but
Darjeeling Limited is God. Everyone's brains are going right now. What? What? All right. I'm not going to Google it. Whatever. Let's move on. Yeah. I'll cop it with you. Yeah. But same thing where you're just like, was that, but again, that's an interesting thing. That movie, again, I believe shot on DVXs versus, the ultimate control of David Fincher, but that was also shot on Viper. I know you have a, you've accepted the digital wave of cameras. Do you find that nowadays, they've gotten to the point where it's like literally not even a factor, or do you still kind of pine for
No. I mean, film is still very popular. Very, Kodak is still producing stock and processing it, and we've had all the 2 or 3 films now made on VistaVision, and the old cameras are coming out, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very much of that. It's just that at the time you make the film, you try to make the decision according to the story. As 16 millimeter, super 16 millimeter on our tone cameras for Catherine on the Hurt Locker was absolutely right. It's a digital camera, but it's fine for me because I want to still use a long lens, and people want a 4K, resolution to broadcast so that they can prove that we have 4K TVs and you can actually watch a very, your TV may be shit. You may have it set for the sports, viewing, and it's, it's the green is like out here, and for the pitch, and the red for the shirts are over there. It's like, nothing to do with cinema. So it's it's a vague attempt, and I know people like Netflix are very much interested in trying to improve the image and make a cinematic view of the world, but there's a conflict between cinematographers, the world of cinema, and the world of TV makers, TV manufacturers. Anyway, that's again we've gone off another tangent there, but
no, this is what I was saying at the beginning. This is the tangent podcast. This is just
okay.
You can spend the entire time pontificating, and that's great. We all
okay, yeah. The answer to your question is, as I still love film, and here's a little thing for you. The last thing, as we finished on House of Dynamite, was Catherine whispered to me, "We'll do the next one on Super 16 again." And that's not a promise, or it was a comment. It was a comment, and but I take that to my heart. I know what she means by that. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, one for them, one for us, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. A lot of your films, I didn't realize you had shot. Like even between, like I enjoyed The Old Guard. I know that's kind of a popcorn action sort of flick, but I enjoyed it. Obviously Bourne.
Yeah.
Kind of in the same vein as Hurt Locker, Big Short. Being growing up in the early 2000s and stuff, like having that kind of laid out, very sobering. But I didn't realize that. More than I think a lot of people, the style that you bring to these shoots is so evident and yet fits the content so well. Like I don't sit there and go like, oh, that's Barry's movie. But then looking at the list of them, I'm like, oh, of course they are. You know,
Okay.
they do a wonderful job of interfacing with the content, with the script. You know, and
Okay.
I think that all of those choices you've made, all those
Yeah.
agreements you made to shoot those films, were all perfect. You were perfectly
Yeah.
cast, as it were.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it. And as people come to you, came to me in this case, they go, you know, I was making films with Ken Loach, so it was a call from Ken Loach. You know, I know you're very busy and you wouldn't want to do this, but that's Ken's approach. You know, but it was a direct call. You know, Paul Greengrass the same. You know, and I said to him like, "Oh, is it because I worked with Ken Loach because that was the most known thing?" He said, "No, it's this little TV drama you did, which was called Out of Control. I loved it, and now I want you to shoot this kind of unknown project, which was yeah, United 93, and we invented a way to shoot it. So, you know, and that was." And by then, you know, I wasn't shooting the Ken Loach thing because it's very classical and beautiful in Ken's way. I was much more fluid using my documentary background. So that suited, and that film should have won an Oscar. That is a masterpiece of filmmaking. And then, you know, and we did a few films like that and Captain Phillips and so on. And from that, Catherine called because, oh, I love United 93, you know. And then Adam McKay calls and he goes, I like United 93. He said it's a very clean film. And I thought, no, my memory is it's just like, it was a lot of mess, you know. But he liked the way it was filmed. And that was a beautiful liaison because, again, like you pointed out, it wasn't an action film of you know, where the camera was physically involved in the story as the other films, but he was talking more about, and this has also become a kind of a part of my genre, I suppose, people sitting at a desk talking, counting numbers, you know, trying to make decisions whether, you know, what do we do next, kind of decisions. And which is, again, bringing it back to House of Dynamite. That's exactly what we're filming. It's got, you know, the energy is there, and the camera has to interpret that. It has to be in it. It can't. If we made it in a conventional way, I don't think we would have the same drama, you know. And I think that's what Catherine thinks. You know, I know that's what she thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think when I said that you're cast well, I didn't realize I actually mean that almost literally, because your style of operating, people say like, oh, the camera's a character, but the way that you are able to anticipate character movement, you know, I know you guys don't really rehearse in such a sense, you know, people don't really have traditional marks and everything.
Definitely not. No.
You this is something I had to learn as a documentary DP is just anticipating where people are going to go, right? And I think you're at the top of that craft, and it makes you forget that you're watching move. Like it just, I guess that the simplest way to put it is it does feel like a documentary, but it's beyond that. There's no artifice. It's as if your eyes, you know, I heard one DP say like, or maybe it was a director who's like, the camera work is like if you were to grab someone by each ear and just direct their head. And so when you do a lot of this, you know, it can be, how is anyone going to see anything? And you do a great job of grabbing everyone by the ear and going, that's important. That's important. That's important. And yeah, something like Dynamite, I think is a perfect, you know, new look at that style. I find it fascinating. How do you keep it from looking like a documentary? You know, obviously the camera work can be the same in both genres, but there is, in all of these films you've done, even with this operation style, the look of it is still cinematic, for lack of a better term. Is
Yeah,
that
no,
just
yeah.
down to the grading and placing yourself in a good lighting situation? Or like, what are the additional things you're doing to make it not look like crap?
No, I mean it wasn't in a good lighting situation in this film. You know,
Yeah.
we had copied and reproduced in government buildings that were pretty horrible places to be in. They're not attractive. Yes, um, but that was always my role as a documentary filmmaker was, you know, is when to switch the lights off. You know, when to move handheld style so that the light hitting the subject was more beautiful than just shooting it. So, you know, for me, documentary isn't just to shoot whatever happens in front of you. It was part of this role of understanding the subject matter, being completely in tune with it. You know, I was just thinking today of, you know, doing a film about people who were down and out and sleeping rough many years ago, you know, probably under Thatcher's years, you know, the 80s. And we were filming that on the streets, and you know the amount of humanity that was on in the faces of people. You know, the dignity. You know, if I wasn't shooting something that was dignified about that, I would not turn the camera over, because you know that you have to respect the subject. You know, and I've done everything from the Queen of England to the poorest peasants on earth, you know, as documentaries, and everything in between. And I feel like all the time it's finding those moments, and then the camera just responds. It doesn't have to be frantic, or but I find the tool that I like the most is the zoom lens, you know, and using my left hand to respond to my, you know, my brain and my hand are working simultaneously. There's no delay, there's no interaction between it. Oh, did you just, oh, that's interesting, I should, yeah, I'll go a bit tighter. You know, it's not that. It's like I see it, there it is. I looking last night, because I did another Q&A when I got back to London, and uh there's a moment in which I realized was very beautiful only last night by watching it again. So it's when it's towards the beginning, when they know that in the what's it called, Fort Greely, those 8 young people who were tasked with this unbelievably scary this, you know, making decisions, and being the ones who fire the rocket up there to intercept. They and then they hold all that in their body after, and their mind afterwards. And one of the characters, he goes to talk to his mother and just says, "You can't say, you know, the world's going to end," or you know, he just says, "You know, we try our best." And then he lifts his head, and at that moment, I've got the camera on him, and like the eyes from looking down to looking up alter completely, minusculely, but completely, and the camera just, you know, like a breath, it just moves forward a touch in my hand, just with the zoom, and then it's cut, gone. You know, and but perhaps without that little move, that moment wouldn't be as intense as a still frame, a lock off shot or something. I mean, that's how I see it. And if other people appreciate it, that's, well, I can't say anything about that. It's not my, so everybody has their own opinion. It's like, I just wanted to keep doing it and be lucky enough to work with people, you know, like the directors I've already worked with, and the new directors who still want to go on and find a way to express themselves in making films, you know, and, you know, because for me, that's the highest art form we have, is cinematography and cinema, and and I'm proud to do it. You know.
Do you find, because I for sure know the feeling of being able to look through the viewfinder, the screen, or whatever you got,
Yeah.
and kind of hitting that flow, pardon me, that flow state of not reacting in a conscious way, but just kind of like, you know, you
Yeah.
playing the camera like an instrument, you know.
Yeah.
do you find that even after all the experience you've had, that you still are like kind of holding your breath? Because if I think back on the times I've been like really dialed, when I stop recording, I'm like, oh, like I didn't
Yeah,
realize that I was like,
yeah, yeah,
completely
yeah, yeah,
dialed.
yeah,
Are you
yeah,
able to
yeah.
are you able to be in that flow state in a more comfortable way,
Sure.
perhaps?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I know I do a bit of yoga. I do pranayama. I can do all that
Sure.
stuff. I can keep you want to keep a steady, you know, a, a clear head and steady feeling, and as the very first thing I shot when I went so I was at art school, the first time I had a film camera, was on a film course, and the first thing was to shoot credits for a film that another student had made, which meant in those days you had to create the lettering. Director Bob Eade. Luckily, he had just 6 letters to his name. That was good. And I did the letter set, and it was all neat, and then the name of the film. And I had a camera. It was on a tripod, and it had film in it. And I set up, and I lit this little piece of cardboard with 8x4, and I was like a piece of. We got my light meter. I metered every square inch of that little piece of wood, blackboard, and went to the camera, and my heart started to beat. Yeah. And I think that's the feeling I want to get when I go to work every day. Not that you necessarily, but it wouldn't be that intense. In fact, it would be just the fact that I could actually be behind the camera with the eyepiece. I don't prefer to be using a monitor. I find that just a void between the action, and so I get to the eyepiece no matter how uncomfortable that may seem. And my left hand is always there on the zoom, and the right hand is more cradling the camera. It's very loose on the head and probably on a slider, so you can move like you do as a few steps left and right, and then the action starts, and we fall into the story, and with the other camera operators doing the same thing, and it becomes this uh, mutual dance, like rhythm music. It's like a music to me. Yeah. And when we get all the team working together, and then everyone's finding that shot, and they go, oh wow, that's great, that's fantastic. There's a beautiful thing I hope I'm not boring you now, but there's a beautiful thing
I
in
just have notes down here, so I'm just constantly checking.
Correct. No, so the no the and when Rebecca gets the news, that she knows it's all disastrous and her child is perhaps in danger and she is in danger, uh, and she goes into a room and just compose herself, because those people are not meant to show emotion. That's part of the training, but she can't obviously help this. And she performs this so beautifully. And then she comes back, and there's one camera that shows that she is has a tear, which is kind of a weakness. And then, but the other camera, which I'm not sure which one I was on, but it just shows the back of her head, and the edit. It's smart, Catherine and Kirk Baxter, the AA, good, really great editor. They knew that you don't need to hold a tear being shed when you've got the back of the head of someone where you can, and the audience then read into that. That's the kind of beauty you can, and so that has to be done with two people. It has to be two cameras. It has to be, editors and directors who understand that kind of imagery is what is powerful. Not the in your face kind of feeling to things. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to bring up Kirk Baxter because I think, he has had a hand in probably some of the greatest films of at least the modern era. So that,
yeah, sure.
And you guys shot on a ton of cameras, didn't you, all at once? Like it was kind of shot just.
No, I mean, I think that it's the kind of thing that's going around. But we had many cameras. we'd be somewhere in rooms with performances going on, which were then streamed onto the screens that were
Onto the
set up.
big.
But yeah,
Gotcha.
but they would, but they would be doing that all day. They wouldn't do one take and record it and then just play back, because that would have dictated the rhythm of all the dialogue in the room that was there. So they kept playing it as if live, which was, quite a feat. That was Catherine's idea, obviously. And then and the other cameras were there as, which was set as, because like I said, we managed to copy all these interiors of these buildings, bunkers underground, and they all held witness cameras. So we had those witness cameras, but we had them all working, and I think at a resolution, a high resolution, that we could downgrade if we wanted to make it look like more of an observation camera. But if it wasn't that, it was quite a beautiful shot, and if it was necessary or important, it would go into the film. But only 3 cameras were operating, with operators fully conscious and turned on and tuned in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I did see that, like, they were shooting 20 cameras at a time, and I was like, where are they? Because that was going to be my next question, is like, did VFX just paint all these people out? Like, how many?
No. I think that's, it's a little bit of a myth. It's a myth that's got, it's based on something, but it's not really the truth. It's not the physical truth that they have.
I will say, I've had this thought recently. This is semi-related. I do think that, there seems to be this audience push where they feel like they know how films are made, and that has resulted in displeasure. A lot of times they'll see a movie and they're like, oh, I didn't like the color grade, or I didn't like that, but well. And then in the same token, there's people coming out like, oh, we didn't use VFX, and secretly they did. But there's this kind of myth building that I guess PR teams, marketing teams are trying. And I've come around on that. And I do think it's actually important to a degree for the audience to have this myth of the film being made still exist. We don't have movie stars anymore, really, because those myths have been shattered. And whether that's good or bad is one thing, but I do think that the artifice of cinema should expand beyond the screen in a world where we know everything, where the internet exists and stuff. I think that fourth wall needs to be pushed out further.
Okay. Yeah. I hadn't really thought of it, but yes, the fact that it is a mystery, and in one sense, you want people to know that cinematography actually exists.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, people just think there's a film, and that's came about, and of course, pictures had to be made, but they don't have a concept of how or why, or or they might say, it looked really beautiful. It's like looking at a painting or something, saying that, well, I like that painting, it's very beautiful. Not analyzing the technique and the and the work and the dedication that goes into it, and and I don't think there should be a show on TV that's like the cinematographer, and here today he's this sort of cinematographer who's going to teach you how to, it's not that kind of stuff. It's like just acknowledgement, and usually the credit is right up there. I think people just DOP, director of photography. I like to say cinematographer because I just think it's more descriptive. Director of photography is a bit misleading, isn't it? And also it also implies a bit of what's the word? There's some authorship over the very film. And the role of a cinematographer is to enhance the authorship of the filmmaker, the director, writer.
Support role.
It's a support role, but but just think the other way of looking at it, which I think of it, unless we'd invented the moving image, cinematography, we'd be talking about plays now, wouldn't we? And a radio show, podcasts would be okay, but but it is the moving images, which is the first and most important art form. it gave rise to cinema actors, to stars, to directors. Editors also come along with that because they would have nothing to cut if we didn't make them. So I think those are the two art forms, in a sense, that generate the image. Sound is beautiful and totally important as well, but could exist in its own right. But those two art forms are unique, and yeah, people should know about it.
I also think that the two, editing and cinematography, if you are one or the other, learning the other is incredibly important. Learning how to edit made me a much better cinematographer. Instead of just overshooting everything, I'm like, I know how that's going to cut together. We don't need to waste 4 hours on, coverage.
Which is exactly. But that takes me back to my documentary days. I was editing in the camera, so not like, oh, cut, now we've got to. Then we run around there and shoot that. I knew when the shots would flow. You knew how to take the shot away from the subject enough to give the editor time to find things. We wouldn't call them cutaways, but you would follow reaction shots, whilst the dialogue's going on, and that you can see it all in the films we just talked about. Captain Phillips, that final sequence in Captain Phillips, because we shot it instinctively, because we had the real the real medic on board the ship. She played herself, and we dropped in on that because we hadn't, as a whole group of people, we hadn't worked out the ending of this film until we'd shot endings of the film, but no one knew what the final reality of it was until we got ourselves all into that situation. And I think it was the real captain of the real ship who said, well, he wouldn't come here, he would go to the medical room. And of course he would. What are we thinking about? So we just took a quick look, got ourselves set, and walked into the room with the camera running and followed it. And if you actually look at it, it's one of those real documentary things where one line is on camera, and then you're waiting for another line, but it's coming from behind. So you go back, and she's finished her line, and and you learn not to start tromboning. Get on. Okay, I'll hold it. She's listening again now. She'll come up with the line. She did come up with the line. Great. Now I can take that line to back over to Tom, and Tom was probably finishing a line. So you don't have to be in the face on the beat to get reality, and that. So we did another take, and I still tried to get it right, but you're trying hard, but you're not necessarily achieving it. And then the edit makes it look as if it was what it was, really. You walked in there and you saw something for real. Her dialogue was incredible. Her it wasn't a performance. It's wrong to say that. Her job, she did, beautifully. So, and Tom's reaction was absolutely, mind blowing as well. And then we knew we had a film, and it finished a film. I've done documentaries where you have to get the finished end of a film because we spent 6 weeks out here and we haven't got this. When will we stop driving towards the end of something? You have to finally get there, or maybe you make a film with just peters out and there's no ending, which could bring us back to
Dynamite, yeah.
So House of Dynamite. So
technically no ending,
yeah. But this is a film that has no ending, so that's the point, and that's a very, again, editorially, directly, written by Noah Oppenheimer. It was like, this
is also a journalist.
Yeah, he is a journalist. Yeah, that's his deal. Yeah. I think now he might start trying to knock out a few more scripts. I hope so. but he was a subject that he knew. So that's why. And Catherine got him to to put his knowledge into this film, and he did a brilliant job at that. But that, you know, our knowledge ends at like, the decision is down to you, Mr. President. We don't know anything else after that. No one's ever got that far yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? We haven't reached that point, and the drive, the whole idea of the film is we should never get there. We should never have these weapons, and we should not be doing this. That, you know, and that's, if we all take that away, and enough people see it, and there's enough power and information to change all that, then this will be one of the few films that ever did change the world. Because I think it can't. Film doesn't do that. Film just, either it affects you or it doesn't. You know, and that's all it is. Really, it's.
Yeah, there's this great quote. Ethan Hawke was on Colbert, I think, and he was saying that a good movie is like hitting a bell, where you ring it and then it reverberates throughout the audience. You know, and then someone else somewhere was like, "Oh, you know, movies start when you leave the theater," and I think this film is almost on the nose that, you know, where it's like, the ending is, what do you think now? You know, what's your opinion of all that? Now you have that discussion with your friends and family, because that's the intent of the film.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and it is the, you know, I think I put it like this: the fourth film is, because we have the written word, and then the intention of cinematography and performance and acting and everything that goes into that making of the film is the crucial bit. But it's the second film. It's come after the script. Third one is the edit and the decisions and the finishing and the polishing of the film, to what degree you want to do that. And the fourth one is when the audience, like you just said, walk out of the cinema and us are breathless or dumbfounded or chatty or happy or sad, or, you know, or very thoughtful. And I know those are the films that inspired me to try to become and do what I do now, you know, from a place where I had no concept of how you would make films or how you could ever be part of it, or let alone be a cinematographer or something. But bit by bit, small steps, you know, I got, you know, I was just I was almost driven there, because art teacher says you don't have to go to the factory, go to the art school instead. Oh, okay, I'll go to the art school. Art school kind of drives me through the next period of my life. Oh, you need to go and get into the industry. Here's the keys to an apartment. Tell them Chris sent you. And oh, okay, I'm going to go up to London. I'm moving to London now. Okay, now you've got to find a job. Oh yeah, there's a job going around, because no one else would go to Northern Ireland in the Troubles, right? So unless you were they were scraping the barrel. But, you know, you turn that into, oh, and that's an opportunity. I'm running to Roger Deakins and end up shooting, you know, assisting him on documentaries, and then before he moved on, you know, all this stuff. Ken Loach told you, then Paul Greengrass, and then Catherine Bigelow and Adam McKay and Jay Roach, and, you know, it's like, and lots of people in between, and you just feel, oh, I never even thought I'd get to be behind a camera, and now here I am, you know. Yeah. I mean, going to the Oscars, being beaten by Avatar. Oh, I told you I wouldn't talk about it yet. No, there were 4 films that got beat there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a joke. You know, that's a joke.
But it is. I have noticed that about even myself. You know, clearly not as accomplished as you, but you do set, I think, in any profession, or but especially ones where you're kind of the driver of your success, freelance, whatever, you have like this goal, and you're like, oh, if I will have made it when I do that. And then you get there and you're like, okay, I did that. And it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel as monumentous as it should. And so you're like, well, I guess I need another goal. Like,
Yeah,
you just keep doing that over and over and over again.
yeah, because you don't. I just feel that I keep saying you must try harder. You know that I say to the crew, you know, even when you finish one of those days, you've been out and like day and night shoot, and you're exhausted, and you put all your efforts into it. You know, you kind of jokingly look at each other, go like, "We must try harder next time." You know, it's like, yeah, but that's it, it's a joke, but it's about, yeah, we could. There must be something else to do that's better. You know, that's more. That's, you know, gets close to it. We learned something. You learned something. I learned something today. I learned it. You know, when I learned it when I when, watching the film last night. I learned it when I was in camera match, and I'm, you know, chatting with Ed Lackman, or, you know, all these, you know, really great cinematographers that I look up to, you know, because and I look, you know, Robbie Ryan, you know, it's not like an age thing, it's at
I just
all.
talked
It's
to
just
him.
all about, yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
great. He's a bundle of energy.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I'll try and be like him. Hey, come
No,
on,
no, no,
listen.
no.
No, no.
Be yourself.
DJing his way through the nights, you know, like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? You know, how do you do it? Yeah, I can't, I wouldn't, you know, but yeah, I admire his energy. Yeah. And all that stuff. I admire all these cinematographers because it's, there's a real beauty to doing it. You know, yeah, I think you've got the idea that I really love cinematography. I don't have to keep saying, but I do love it. I love the process and the action and the moment, like you said, when your eye goes to the camera. And I loved it when it was the film camera, and you heard the purring of the camera. You know, oh, it was like, yeah, you know, that was great. So,
Yeah. I learned on an RE. Was it just called the RE Flex 16? The little turret, the three turret
yeah, yeah.
16.
Oh, yeah.
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 Not blimped, so that purring was a little
Yes,
bit more
yeah.
of a roar, but but it
Yeah, they used
was
to have blimps. They used to put blimps on the. They used to put blimps on the actual lens as well. Kind of weird things, and
oh
how because they were just not ergonomic at all. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, we had those, but
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask because I with the advent of the internet, there certain I don't certainly not losers, but there are seem to be winners when it comes to anything. People who just seem to become the hero of any given story or whatever. And one of those people seems to be Deakins. He seems to be
yeah,
the everyone's just like he's the best. You can
yeah.
argue that for sure. He's excellent. I don't know if he's. I think like you're saying, one thing that I really loved about my uh, I hate the word journey, but my journey as a cinematographer was learning, not even learning, but just finally having the experience of appreciating everyone's take on cinema,
Yeah,
whatever they did. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
that's a cool choice. That's versus saying, ooh, I don't like that, or like, ooh, that's not for,
No, yeah.
just being like, oh, interesting, and just loving. That was a great, phenomenal thing. Anyway, uh, with Deakins, working with him, was there anything that you learned from him early on that you've carried forward, or even in your? I'm sure you've run into him since, but
Oh, yeah.
like, why do you think people think he's the greatest when
Well,
there
he's
are so many great cinematographers out there?
yeah. It's a good. It's a, I mean, he is great. I mean, you know, I think again, the choice of films that he's made describes something, and those films are loved by, you know, just about everybody. You know, they're very hard not to love his film and his technique, and and you know, I disagree with his technique because, well, we worked together on documentary things. We went to like Sudan to film uh, indigenous people there. Like when I say indigenous, like back to the beginning of mankind, you know, and that was really a real fantastic thing. And then other documentaries with Van Morrison and things like that. But he was, um, I always watched the other cameramen that I worked with, and I always felt that there was another element of truth that wasn't quite being found, even in the documentary.
Mm.
So when I got off the chance to start shooting documentaries, so that was my first break from being a camera assistant, was was to try and experience that, and that's what I did, and that's where so it's from there it was more of a divergence than a coming together, if that makes sense. you know I looked around and I thought, I should do something different. I should look for this unique thing, and that's been my still is.
Well, it reminds me of like playing music, learning what you don't like is as important as learning what you do like.
Yeah.
Because if all you have is stuff you like, you tend to, this definitely applies to cinematography. You tend to not be very focused. When you know what you don't want to do, it's easier when you start running into that. You're like, no. You can just ignore it versus having all the options in the world. Having to choose from infinity.
Well, we'll go back to Roger. He's got his vocabulary. It's very precise. He can stand on the podcast or the talks he does around the place. He can be absolutely defined about what he likes and doesn't like, and and he can show you, and he can prove to you. He can show you endless shots that look like that, and it's just it's kind of opposite to what I do. That's if say he believes a close-up should be like 3 feet away from someone on a 20mm lens, and that's the close-up, that's the single shot, and then you turn around and you do the reverse on someone else. To me, I try and make that into one shot. I try and get 3 things in my shot rather than have 3 shots. That's all I think about.
40 feet away.
Yeah, and also as far away as you can get. Yeah, can load you in a number of closets or through doorways, or I remember one of the first moments I worked with Ken was he wanted a shot of a huge factory, and you're standing 20, 30 yards away from it. And you kind of imagine, this is what, a lot of people just do this, just think, oh, you want to see the whole thing? Okay. Have you got the wide lens? Give me the wide lens. And you stand there until you got every inch of it in, but you haven't thought about the framing. You haven't thought about what does this wide lens actually, is that saying something to you?
Right.
And so Ken goes, no, I think, and we start walking, and we walk and walk and walk. I'm probably carrying the camera on a tripod. In those days, it was like documentary to sound. We'd walk off, and we'd get probably a quarter of a mile away, put the camera up and put the long lens on, and there's the factory. But it's like, it's compressed. It's in there, human figures in front of it are still human. And there's space, and there's mid-ground and background, and and I straight away, well, I know which one I like. That was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how you learn.
This kind of brings me to something I was going to ask earlier, and then I got carried away. But when your style is so improvisational to a degree, what does pre-production look like? Are you guys talking more about kind of emotions and vibes, or like how much actual planning, like camera go here, light go here, like how much of that is actually happening versus kind of just talking about maybe the emotions of the scene? Or
no, but the preparation for me is to be ready, ready to experience the event. So, of course, scouting, finding the locations, picturing all this in your head, maybe describing, illustrate, not like doing drawings, but saying like, we should drive, this far, and we can do this, and we should bring them into here, and excuse me, particularly strong. And then we could, but not, storyboards can get made and moved around. But to me, it's like, well, we're probably going to change the location, and we don't know that actor anyway, so I don't know what what they're going to do, and they haven't been cast, and we've, you know, and that's just been added to the script. It's not in those drawings. It's like there's only so much. It's some people just just again being in camera image, cinematographer saying, I have to do this. I have to draw these things 5 hours a day. I put into for the first 5 weeks. I put into storyboarding, so I know every shot, I know every place, and I know all this, and that's how they work. And I go, I could do. Let's keep looking for locations. Let's do a little testing. But I'll probably go back after testing all different equipment or lenses. I'll go back to my roots.
Yeah.
And if it works, it's good. If not, we'll change it.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like you're almost like a sort of a hockey player in the sense of like, well, you practice, stuff, but once you get on the ice, it's like the other team gets a say.
Yeah, well, it's very much like yeah. You can't I can't if I go in there and over anticipate, I've lost the concentration because I'm trying to do something that's been thought out or taught to me, or we've written it down. You have to do this, and then you find yourself just trying to capture that one thing that we have to get this moment. I have to get this moment. Oh, you missed it. We've got to get it again, and it just gets worse and worse for me. I remember doing this with some musician with uh, I get myself. Oh God, I forget his name. Cocker, not Joe Cocker. Anyway, British musician, and he was directing actually, and he had a band in front of him. It's a music video, and I was brought in with him, not as the DP, but just wanted to operate for a friend of mine. So I'm operating, and he goes like, "Okay, on the fifth beat, whatever. I don't know much. I don't know anything about music. On the fifth beat, you have to go boom, and you pan then, and you find him over here, right? So now my heart's going like, I have no idea. 5. I'll count to 5. I don't know what if it's a beat or not. And I could never do it because I got there, and there was no motivation. He was just in the middle of a chord or something, and then he looked, and I had to wait for the moment when he looked because that was the visual. So I was not favored because I was going like, well, that's the shot. And they were going, no, you have to do it on, and then I'll stand by you, and like
the Damien Chazelle method of movement.
yeah, and like tap me on the shoulder, and now I'm just thinking, why are you tapping me on the fucking shoulder? It's like, yeah, get someone else to do this. I only came here as a favor for a good friend. I don't, leave me alone. It's yeah. Jarvis Cocker is the person I was thinking of. Jarvis Cocker is a brilliant British musician, yeah, who I love, dearly. His music, his politics, his concepts, and everything are great. Yeah, but that's what I mean. If someone gave me beats to do, I'd start to panic a little bit, and I think that's what a storyboard is. It's a series of beats, and I'm not saying don't do it and don't go through it and don't analyze everything you want to do. I'm sure absolutely brilliant films happen like that.
Well, but so for something on like Old Guard, is the approach any different? Because that's a little bit more involved than your, Dynamite or Big Short.
I can do that. I can get involved in it. I mean, I don't have a problem in either way. It's not like an either or. Actually, on the first Old Guard, for whatever reason, I got a call to come and take over on the shoot. Catherine and Charlize, who I'd worked with, and I know, and she likes to work.
Bombshell first with her?
No, it goes way back to a film called Battle in Seattle, way back with it's and she's in that. Yeah. Anyway, it's and then no, I did. There's quite a few films I've done with her actually. That they're not all like blockbustery type films, but Anyway, so I get a call. I'm working on a commercial in Colombia or somewhere, and so I get a call not from her directly, but her team. Charlie wants you to come over and go. No, 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 no. I'm not gonna. I don't want to take over another film from another cinematographer. Please, it's not my thing anymore. I did it once. It was really bad. But they keep convincing you. So I only got there, and that was a bit of a ridiculous story. But anyway, I took over halfway through the film, so I had no prep. I'd seen nothing. I got off a plane. They drove me straight to the studio.
Oh no,
to Shepperton, literally, and then the designer, who's also a friend and a colleague that I've worked with a few times, he was on the show, so he was like, "This is we're building this thing here. We got this. This is in construction. I'll take you around there later on. These are the drawings for where we're going to be putting this. This is going to be." And I hadn't even seen the script. He's telling me about the actors and where they would be, and we're planning that they're going to be here, and it was like, oh. Yeah, okay, yeah, I think I've got all the information. Again, they gives me piles of paper, like with there's the drawing of this, the drawing of that. And then I they drive me home. I get showered and meet my wife again, and then come back and go like, all right, I'm going down. I didn't start that day. I think it was 2 days later or something, but drove me on set and then introduced to the crew, and then you start shooting. So, and I can do that.
Kind of was the same thing then, yeah.
It's not. I'm not advocating it, and I said it before. I did that on another film, and it was pretty disastrous, But I was much younger, and it was a difficult film to do. But it was, this was, I just accepted what was there, and I could see it, and I could probably have done a better job if I'd have known more, but
I think you did a fine job. Obviously, I don't know what parts you did.
Well, yeah, you can't really tell. There's not much difference. Yeah, and yeah, it did, yeah.
I read this is complete pivot. I read this thing that was saying that you used to put like a Kino tube in a piece of pipe and use it as like a little cheater light. And I was wondering, with little distance between the old Kino days and now, are you still doing that kind of stuff of just like making your own little?
They're manufacturing. No, because I did. Some years ago when LEDs came out, I thought, this is a thing. I'll make an LED light, an eye light type thing, because that's what you could do. The LEDs are really crap, really bad. And it was a real uphill, So, I respect the fact that people took that concept and have turned it into very valuable and interesting lights, with good color correction and variations in them and dimmable, all that stuff. A lot of engineering and things. I'm not an engineer, but I got involved with design and stuff with it. Disastrous thing to do, because I still wanted to be a cinematographer. I wasn't going to make a light. That was a stupid idea. And those tubes of draped, downpipes, that's what they were. The downpipes painted white on the inside. That's all been replicated now in digital materials. So they're lightweight. Xter is a key member of that, but it's a lot of other things. Every time you go to a show now, the new equipment is, maybe a new camera or a new development of a camera or two, and then you'll have a lot of equipment, like ways of moving things and lightweight machinery and gimbals and things like all that technical stuff around it is expanding all the time. And lighting, another version of another light, one inflatable ones, and because I think the one thing I did when I was trying to get this plan for LED lighting was come up with all the concepts that you could have. and I pretty much wrote them all. I've got a document where I wrote
I'd
down.
love to see that.
No, you know, you could have them where they kind of click together and do this, which is now, of course, what you build TV screens, massive TV screens from. Uh, they're Lego. They kind of they're made to fit together. There's clip, 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 all that stuff. I wouldn't know how to do it, but I just knew the concept. You get balloons and you could have all kinds of things happening. I wrote it all down and did some sketches of what it should be like. That was it.
Yeah. Steve Yedlin, the DP.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him a couple days ago, and he's invented this thing where it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's a program where he can drive any LED. Doesn't matter. Like, as long as he can profile it, like even the crappiest little Walmart LEDs, he said,
Yeah.
he would do this. And he can make them cinema lights, like DMX controllable, accurate to whatever his meter.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that, like, way beyond my pay grade, but really fun to listen to.
Well, he just but his real work was in understanding all the nature of different grain and camera of celluloid, so that could be applied to film. And when I did meet him, I was in New Orleans, New Orleans, and we started a film. I've got to go and find a good coffee shop. That's one of the first things I got to do. So I left the production office, went to the coffee shop, and there's a guy sat in the coffee shop, and he's got his script, which nowadays, for a long time, has had your name written across it on every page, so to make sure you don't, I don't know, what if you lose it, you get blamed for it. So it, like, just looked over his shoulder, Steve Yedlin. Wow, sort of Googled him. Okay, hey Steve, hey, I love that film you did. And I was like, not. And then, but he was, what he was actually doing was working on a computer to grade someone else's film, completely different. He has a he's a beautiful filmmaker as well, but he is absolutely the most scientific. I think he is a mathematician. I think I've heard. I'm not sure, but he's a mathematician by definition, and he is a genius kind of person. I'm the opposite. I'm just like the absolute opposite of that. So
it's a different type of genius to be able to walk onto a set and just be like, I know where this is going. Like, that's, or more specifically, you don't know where it's going and you can still get everything out of it and not be stressed out. That's a particular level of genius I'd love to hit.
Yeah. When you get some support, you've got someone, the producers behind you, like, don't worry, and as it happened, you walk onto the set. They were filming in Britain, and so the crew were, not my crew that I might have used, but you know what I mean. You can really get on with certain people, and we, you talk the same language, have the same humor and jokes, and and things to chat about. So that worked fine. That all was fine. Actors were fine about it all as well.
Yeah. When I got to let you go here in a minute because I'm
I could now.
Yeah. But it's been a phenomenal conversation. But I did quickly want to ask about, as a last question, for Dynamite or really any of your films, when you are shooting in this improvisational way, do you find that you need to spend more personal attention to the grade, to any potential, like, sometimes VFX will paint out stands or whatever, but like, do you have to spend a little extra time in post to get what you want to help?
Well, it hasn't worked like that. I graded both the Oh God 2 and the House of Dynamite back to back pretty much this year, and to finish them both off. Both with Stefan Nakamura, who's just a brilliant colorist, and I work with him a lot. A lot, as many times as I can. And he was obviously on these two films. Unfortunately,
he did 7, didn't he?
yeah. He's the top. He's got he's got it, and he knows that my style is not to bring too much style to it. It's about really capturing the lot is very simple. It's something, yeah, and we kind of just general sense of density and and color range that's in there. But that varies as well. And then he, so I can trust him, and the process is he will take the edited film and have a week, 2 days, 3 days a week with it, so he can get it straightened out, make sure everything flows, and then we start to spend another couple of weeks where we'll try and bring it into here and there. So sometimes you go, that shot, we just got stopped. We've got to really get onto this because I really hate that color in the background's killing it, and you know what I mean, because of things that yeah, and you're always then, now, if I mean, it stopped a lot, but when we went digital, and it was, you just said, oh, we can fix it in post, we'll fix it in post, especially on commercials and things. So it would be, no, you don't have to fix it in post if we do it right. So let's try and keep the whole process as real as we can, and of course you've got the visual effects supervisor with you on the entire shoot. So it's mostly a question of, look, if we're going to have to, we want to shoot 360 here. I know this is fine, but you okay with that? And we don't have to put, it'd be great, we could put a green screen up there. And like, you really think so? Because, by the time we come here, we might not even be shooting that direction, and whatever. And, you're trying to help everybody in everybody's department all the time, whether it's makeup and wardrobe, or definitely the sound department, to make sure sound is good. That's always been from back to documentaries. If you're shooting a documentary and you don't have the sound,
Yeah,
it was, you have to put a piece of jazz over there, like the early days, and someone would have to tell you what they're saying. That was, we'd gone beyond that, and the combination of a good team of people is a fantastic, thing on set, where you can turn around and you trust, the trainee and the most experienced people on set, and then you can see them communicating with each other. Oh, you should do that. Let me show you this. And that's good. And even if House of Dynamite, was seen by half a dozen people, no, a bit more than that, but and we'd finish the film, I'd still be really happy, because the process and the dedication and the feeling on set was wonderful all the way through the film. And that's a lot to do with Catherine, Greg on the producer side, all this, everybody was there. And of course, first AD, Simon Warnock, they don't get mentioned enough. A first AD is like, captain of the ship, really.
Yeah, and the first film that I worked on that had like a competent first AD, not just one of our buddies. Oh my God, I just fight for it now. I'm like, hey, I'll take less money if someone else can schedule this, because then I end up scheduling it if I don't.
Yeah.
How long is this going to take? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's what it's about. Yeah, and constantly updating everything, because it's like a jellyfish, isn't it? Or it's not a fixed object. It's something that is constantly fluid, and things don't go right all the time, and things that you never imagined happened in front of your eyes. That's the beauty of it.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.